Welcome to another episode of the BioHub. Today we welcome a true visionary with the co-founder and CEO of Symbiosis, leading the charge of such an innovative company which is revolutionizing cancer care by blending artificial intelligence with personalized medicine. I'm thrilled about the insights and stories we're about to uncover as we welcome Tushar Pandey to the show. Tushar, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Max. How you doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Really well. Honestly, thanks for joining us. I'll kick things off. So let's start off with Symbiosis. So who is Symbiosis and what are you guys doing at the moment?
Yeah, Symbiosis is a first of its kind digital precision medicine platform. Our vision at our core is to redefine the concept of precision medicine. You know, if you and I Google precision medicine, as non-clinicians, what we'll find is the definition of precision medicine is quite myopic. It's let's find this one genetic or gene-based target. Let's find a drug that matches that and let's give it to a patient, right? From a patient and cancer care team's perspective, it's quite myopic. Precision medicine is the broad journey of a patient ever since they're diagnosed to their cure and all the decisions that are made in between. We at Symbiosis are trying to take the guesswork that exists specifically in the cancer care journey for these patients and the cancer care team and really personalizing those decisions with artificial intelligence in a field called spatial biophysics.
Nice. And just talk me through the moment or inspiration behind the founding of Symbiosis.
Yeah, you know, cancer is a very personal journey for all of us, right? We all know or will know, unfortunately, in our lifetime, a family member, a friend, a colleague who is going to be impacted by their journey. And, you know, for me, it was actually a very, very personal mission. My mother was diagnosed in 2018 with liver cancer, right? And what I found in her journey, and I'd been in healthcare a long time to know, you know, these decisions are complex. The clinical variation exists, right? It's an opinion-based industry that is starting to embark on a data-driven approach, but you know, utilizing, really driving insights and driving personalization from data was missing. And that's what I personally encountered and was really gut-wrenching for me. It was like, how can I take, with my mother, how can we take such an important journey of our life with such little precision and so much guesswork and so much trial and error? And I'm the first to always admit I am technically, biologically and clinically naive. So I did not understand the complexities. And that's sometimes good when you're innovating. It's sometimes good to be a little naive and being outside of this space. You know, the mission for us was really how to think how cancer care is provided and how we can assist clinicians in making these refined decisions that need to be made in the workflow. So I met I'm not the scientist. I met two of my co-founders, Dr. Joseph Peterson and Dr. John Cole, who had established some really interesting science and how you could model the behavior of cancer cells, but computationally, without needing a wet lab, leveraging data that's generally collected. And what we decided to do together was try to apply that into a patient's journey and into a thoughtful and really meaningful platform that will support the decision-making.
Yeah, nice. And then, I mean, AI is a buzzword at the moment. I feel like you guys were ahead of the curve in terms of jumping on that train. In what ways do you believe AI is changing the landscape of cancer treatment and biotech as a whole?
Yeah, you know, AI is a buzzword, but AI has started to convert into an enabling technology, an enabling approach that really allows us to rethink how care and how the disease is understood. If you kind of think about cancer specifically, how do you better understand this disease at scale? And then ultimately, really, where the value of AI is going to is how do we transform how the disease is treated, right? So if you specifically think about the cancer space, you know, there's tons of data that is collected in the cancer diagnostic workup or through the patient's journey. And again, as I was mentioning, the fundamental of the company is there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And what AI is allowing us to do, and really how we think it'll transform at least the treatment landscape, is how do we match the data and the data that's generated in the process, develop and derive insights from it, and really guide that towards meaningful decisions that need to be made along the journey, both in terms of how do we reduce the resource burden that exists, right? There's more cancer diagnoses now than ever. And you know, there's a resource problem on the horizon. There's going to be limited oncologists to treat a growing population of patients. So AI can be the enabler in driving more efficiency into the workflow. There are more drugs in the horizon, so the treatment landscape has become very, very complex, not just in terms of what drugs you give, but when do you give a particular drug, at what dosage. Those decisions are going to be hard for a human to make all the time, and that's where enabling platforms like AI comes into play to really drive that decision making. And then the last and kind of the fundamental area where you're seeing a rise of AI is on the drug discovery side, right? How do you do really complex calculations at scale to find what the next generation of drugs will be? So look, has not had the impact that it's destined to have. It's early days for AI, but you're starting to see these really transformative use cases that are applied. So for instance, at Symbiosis, we're applying AI across the treatment landscape, right? Everything from what does this disease look like? How big is it? What's the extent of the disease, to what is the right surgical plan for a patient? Our first indication is breast cancer. And breast cancer, the first decision that's made by the patient is not what treatment they'll get. It's actually, should they completely remove their breast or can they conserve their breast? And that decision is made, without a lot of data available. It's an arts decision right when it should be a scientific decision. That's where AI enables, and a better understanding of images and data that's collected to, then the question becomes, when do you give treatment? Is it neoadjuvant or adjuvant, before or after surgery? That's an important decision in solid tumors, right? Do you shrink the tumor before you remove it or do you not? And that's also done primarily based on trial and error. Let's give the patient a drug. Let's see if the drug does anything, and then we'll change our plan accordingly. AI technologies like ours are kind of providing that information up front so that that decision can be made with better data and better information and more certainty than it would be without, all the way down to, what's the right dose. Big area of focus both in biotech and the clinic is now becoming, what's the appropriate dose that a patient should get. Back in the day, it was about maximal tolerable dose that was established in clinical trials. Now it's about how do we optimize the dose for the patient. You can't do that on a patient-by-patient basis manually. So you need technologies like AI. You need platforms that then implement AI to lead to these clinical utilities to be able to really kind of change the landscape of cancer care.
Wow.
That's a very long-winded of saying it's a very exciting time in this space, particularly in the cancer landscape, and AI is here to make a mark.
No, definitely. I mean, there's a reason why it's become a buzzword. Everyone's really excited about it. You've got companies like you guys, and then like Insilico just won the most innovative company of 2023. And they're obviously AI discovery through and through, and I think it's really exciting. I think it's really exciting.
The way we see the two worlds, right? There's a world that is, what is a better future in terms of therapeutics and how do we apply? And that's where some of the companies in drug discovery are doing really transformative work. Where we see ourselves is, how can we have a better future for cancer care patients and leverage what we have today, both in terms of data, knowledge, therapeutics, better in a more optimized manner to give the patients a better future and better outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think this leads on really well as well. So how do you guys differentiate yourself within AI and biotech, especially in the realm of precision medicine?
Yeah, there's a lot of, and luckily for the future of patients, and both personally for me, there's a lot of players looking to solve a lot of different problems in this ecosystem, right? Whether you look at the computational pathology landscape, the genomic landscape, the imaging landscape. How we differentiate ourselves is we're an aggregator of the different modalities of data. That's one, right? I think cancer, we say this, our scientific thesis is cancer is initially a three-dimensional disease, solid tumor specifically, the shape, the size of the cancer, where it's located, where the blood vessels are, how it behaves, all is different. And, transforms into a four-dimensional disease. It changes over time. So in order for us to understand this disease better and fundamentally change how we treat the disease, you have to understand all four of those dimensions. And that's kind of the core thesis of the company is, can we understand this disease four-dimensionally, leveraging AI as a complementary or enabling technology, but bringing the best in science together with that and our core knowledge of how cancers behave. And we're the first platform of its kind that is thinking about this cancer ecosystem in its breadth, as I mentioned, all the way from precision surgery to therapeutic selection, rather than just focusing on one vertical.
Yeah. And I mean, the next question I had planned were what are the biggest technical challenges? Is that it, or is there more to it? And then how do you address them as a company?
Yeah, every AI company will tell you or AI developer will tell you the same thing, right? The biggest opportunity and the challenge we have with the AI is the data that is used to support the development and the utility of that technology, right? That challenge still exists. We talk a lot about multimodal data, data across scales, but that data doesn't really consistently exist across the patient profile, right? So that will always be the challenge. What you put in, it's true for every other business, right? Whether it's manufacturing or AI, what you put in is what you get out. So garbage in, garbage out, and that still remains the big technological challenge. Continue to refine what AI you use, whether it's traditional machine learning or the future generative AI, will only be meaningful if you have the right data to train those underlying models, right? And we've tried to overcome those challenges. We've developed relationships with over 60 cancer centers across the world, representing the top cancer centers that are providing data to the technology, for us to enhance that, validate that really thoroughly before we put products out into the clinic.
Yeah, nice. And then I suppose moving on from the technology a bit. I mean, I'm truly fascinated by startups, how startups become what they are today, and so on. So, I mean, what strategies do you believe are essential for navigating the competitive biotech landscape?
Yeah, and it's not just it's any competitive market, right? How do you win? One is, and this is true across any industry, but it's even more important here, given the breadth of who you're serving, is listening to your customers. And in the cancer space and the oncology ecosystem, your customer isn't just the payer who's going to reimburse for your technology, isn't just the pharma company who's going to buy your potential product. It's the care team that's actually going to provide the treatment and the patients, and making sure their values, their input, their insights, their needs are really well accounted for as we're developing products. Incredibly important to kind of cut through the noise. It's not always about the shiny new thing or the shiny new approach. I think we have to learn to ask ourselves better is how can we do more with less? Instead of always going after the new data set or the new methodology, how do we take principles and pay homage to all the great science and investments that have been made in this space and think of solutions and ways to scale globally? I'll give you an example. I grew up in East Africa, so I'm from Uganda. That's kind of where my family is from, right? And one of the orientations around our product team is how do we bring products to scale? Not just products that will work for a market that is, technologically very savvy, right? And that has either the monetary availability or the clinical knowledge to leverage new products. But how do you scale to a patient in Uganda who has an exact same need, in fact, more of a need than a patient that might be in the United States? Well, you do that by really thinking of how you fit into the clinical workflow and how you not disrupt the clinical workflow. How do you leverage information that may be available for everybody rather than a subset of patients? So, again, there's a breadth of strategies, right? Every approach has a potential to win. We win as future cancer patients or family and friends of cancer patients if a lot of us win in this competitive ecosystem.
Yeah. I'm interested about you as well. Like growing up in Uganda and then now Chicago. How did you get to where you are now?
Man, I landed from Kampala, Uganda. Look it up on a map, everybody. To Champaign, Illinois. Also look it up on a map, everybody. Places most people have never heard of. I had a passion growing up. I had a passion for electrical engineering, and University of Illinois was actually, which is where the company was founded out of as well, and where I met my co-founders, was one of the top schools for electrical engineering, right? So I had this passion of building chips and spent a lot of time in the silicon fabrication lab. And after I graduated, what I realized is I don't want to be suited up and in a lab my entire life. I like people. No offense, engineers, and no offense, NVIDIA. Just wasn't for me, right? And so what I decided to do was pick instead of picking a job or picking a career, I picked an industry, and that industry ended up being healthcare, which I fell in love with. Right, U.S. healthcare is put on a pedestal, just in terms of top-notch healthcare across the world. And anybody gets sick and can afford it wants to come to the U.S. But what I saw was, the U.S. healthcare has a lot of flaws, and one of the big flaws was this. Kind of the cost of care in the US is unimaginable relative to anywhere else in the world, and really kind of was driven by the challenge of how do we solve for that. So I joined a small company here that was focused in the healthcare space called Strata Decision Technology, where I got this unique opportunity very early in my career to build a product that really relates to how we bend the cost curve. So help build a cost accounting and cost analytics solution for that company. Was very blessed. The product and the company was at the right place at the right time. Everybody in the US started talking about the cost of healthcare. There's a article that came out in the Times magazine around the bitter pill of healthcare cost, and every health system and provider in the country was, we need to rethink how we understand our cost and ultimately what we do about it. So got to work with hundreds of health systems across the country. Got to be a part of that company's growth. Eventually now that company is 1,200 people.
Wow.
Really exciting to track kind of that growth of that company. But while you think you're solving the biggest socioeconomic problem of your lifetime, once cancer hits you personally, you realize costs go out the window. And how do you do more for your loved one in the future of that space? So that was the inspiration, kind of the move, and that was my journey from Uganda to Chicago now.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, in terms of mindset, your mindset, but also what mindset is crucial for innovators in biotech?
Look, it's the never die attitude. Unlike most industries, the biotech and the diagnostic realm has so many hurdles. When you want to do good in this world, especially impact clinical care and help patients, the opportunity is huge, both personally as well as from a venture scale perspective, but the challenges are immense, right? You have regulatory risk and regulatory hurdles. Can you get the technology approved? You have clinical risk and clinical hurdles. Will it work? And if it works, will doctors and patients really adopt it? Right? You have scientific risk because you're innovating and you're trying and testing new things. And then you have commercial risk, right? Who's ultimately, even though doctors use it, who's going to end up paying for it? And that's the blessing and the curse of being an innovator in the clinical ecosystem. So it is about believing in, and again, this may be a little lip service, right? Every one of us has to be reminded that we're on the right track, even though things might not be going perfectly. But it is in essence, the never say die attitude and never say never attitude, right? There's always a breakthrough around the corner in each one of those realms, and knowing that and really believing in the mission and where the desire to do good.
Yeah, I think that goes to say that the same in other industries. I mean, you think of certain entrepreneurs, they just have to have that mindset. Even be a little bit unhinged in a way.
Yeah, totally. Innovation is an innovation if it's not hard, right?
Yeah.
Then you're not. It was easy, then you're not really innovating.
Yeah, I mean, what really gets me about biotech diagnostics is like the end goal just seems so far away, and the work towards it just seems astronomical. And I think to have that mindset, that passion to keep going through all those steps, all those hoops is incredible.
You probably see this in your day-to-day as you go out and meet people and recruit people, right? It just seems like people in this space that is oriented towards better outcomes for patients, they're just wired a little differently. There's lots of war, especially as you kind of find the more senior folks in this space, right? More experience, they already have the war wounds. They understand the challenges, right? But yet they're willing to persist and be in the same industry and do more and do better.
Yeah, like you say, it's like never say die. I mean, they just keep going. I mean, when we were talking before we started recording, I spoke about Meritor's $400 million Series A. the guy who led that was the CEO of Mirador is a guy called Mark McKenna, and he helped raise that, but before that he helped sell Protagonist for, I think it was like over $4 billion, $3 billion to Merck. So he's like done it once, let's go again, and that's exactly the mindset you speak about.
Oh man, no, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I suppose for you, looking back at your own career, and would there be a piece of advice that you wish you'd had at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, what I'm learning, and I learn this every day. This is not meant to be a linear journey, right? It is not a straight line. It is not a linear journey. The sooner you embrace that, the more fun the journey becomes, right? And that's and sometimes you only learn this kind of going through the experiences and going through the ride. But somebody had told me better back in the day, maybe I would have listened, but I would have still said, hey, the plan that I've set out is the plan. It never works that way, especially in this space, right? So be prepared for the zigzag nature of what you're about to embark on.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, we're right at the start of our journey with Avetix and building and getting to that point, but we say that quite often. Enjoy the journey. We always have this end goal in mind. We're going to grow to this many people. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But all the little steps along the way. I mean, I speak to people every day in biotech, in different size companies, and they say, Max, just like sit back, because you're one of 10 people at the moment, and that time is like gold dust. There's no feeling like being in the startup. You're right at the start of your journey. It's incredible. Just sit back and enjoy that.
And you guys get this indirectly, but what I will say is, and we're starting to feel this as a company, that moment, in the various moments that you have in this ride of fulfillment, whatever may be, right? In your case, you might have recruited the next CEO of a company that goes and cures cancer, right? In our case, it's the first time where a patient said, hey, thank you for building what you're building. It really transformed what my journey would have been. Or a doctor said, you're building really meaningful technologies. This is going to change the way we practice medicine. That fulfillment cannot, makes up for the challenges, makes up for the nonlinear nature of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, I definitely get that satisfaction from when I make an awesome placement. Yeah. But the feeling you guys get must be unbelievable.
We're pretty blessed, and it's a long way to go for us, right? This is a marathon for us. I know it's cliche, but it really is. And we're at the starting point of it, but we're starting to feel that fulfillment and feel that acknowledgement that we're building the right things across the company. So it's a very special time for us.
Yeah, I mean, perfect timing for this question. I mean, where do you see Symbiosis in the next 5 years, and what legacy do you hope to create?
Yeah, look, when we built the company and where we're taking this, really, there is a number that we really think about, which is 18.1 million cancer patients globally every year in this solid tumor realm, right? That get these diagnoses. So our intention and our strategy, whether commercial, whether go to market, is how can we service those patients at scale across the journey that they're about to experience on a year-to-year basis. So really, that is the 5-year plan, is creating a playbook of what we're doing in breast, completing that playbook, and really scaling that across other cancers, so that we can be the approach or the standard of care of how decisions are made through that patient journey by clinicians that get involved in the cancer care team that gets involved. And that will evolve. The treatment landscape is changing, right? And we as a company have to adapt to that, whether it's new types of therapeutics or new modalities of treatment. But in terms of legacy, that is part of the legacy, right? We want to leave behind a platform or a set of tools that can fundamentally change the uncertainty that exists in cancer care. And that by removing that uncertainty, you unlock better outcomes, you unlock more cost-efficient care, you unlock a better patient experience. That's why we come to work, and I think that's what we're destined to do if we execute right.
Yeah, amazing. And then in terms of future of AI in healthcare, where do you see it going in the future? Do you see more jumping on the bandwagon? And where do you see Symbiosis, and what role do you guys play in that in the future?
Yeah, AI is here to stay. What AI becomes and how impactful it becomes, the next few years will tell. But what it'll always, what it has already become and is very quickly destined to become is a partner for clinicians to help them become more efficient and to help them stay up to speed with the evolving landscape. Just in terms of Symbiosis role, we want to be one of the companies, that pioneers not what the AI is and the enabling components of AI, but really how AI got used to drive better treatment decisions across the continuum of care.
Amazing. Yeah. Look, I really appreciate you coming on, Tushar. It's been a pleasure. And the first time we've really had an in-depth conversation about AI and that buzzword everyone's been talking about. So I really appreciate it. I think we'll have to blur your background now.
Hey, if you want to keep me on your podcast, you're going to have to become a Manchester United supporter. Otherwise, I'm never coming back.
I'm only joking. I'm sure a lot of people will approve. But look, it's been a pleasure. Please, everyone, like and subscribe. And thank you so much for coming on, Tushar.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you.